Chapter 1. You have two options. Sign the divorce settlement and take the $10 million or walk away with nothing. My mother-in-law, Victoria Miller, slammed the two files onto the marble coffee table in front of me. Her perfectly applied makeup couldn't hide the disgust in her eyes. I looked down at the documents, and to her surprise, I smiled. I'll walk away with nothing. The vast living room of the Greenwich Mansion fell silent. The only sound was the loud, insistent ticking of the antique grandfather clock against the wall. Victoria froze. Even my wife, Sarah, who had been watching from an armchair with a look of cold indifference, was visibly shocked. "Ethan, are you insane?" Sarah's voice was laced with disbelief. "That's $10 million. I slowly got to my feet, smoothing the front of my shirt. "No, I'm not insane. I've never been more clear-headed. 3 years ago, I was the poor kid from Queens who married into the Miller family. Everyone said I did it for the money. Today, I was going to prove them all wrong. In my previous life, I had taken the $10 million. I thought it was a fresh start, but it was a trap. The money was from an offshore account tied to a money laundering scheme, and the moment it hit my account, the FBI was at my door. I spent 3 years in prison, and when I got out, I discovered Sarah was already engaged to her childhood sweetheart. I was a cautionary tale, a joke. What filled me with rage, however, was that during those 3 years, the Miller family had used my patented technology to make a fortune. The revolutionary AI system that had saved Miller Corp from the brink of collapse. I developed it. Now, reborn and standing in this exact moment 3 years in the past, I would not make the same mistake again. "Ethan," Victoria shot to her feet, her finger trembling as she pointed it at me. "Do you think playing hard to get is going to squeeze more money out of us? Let me tell you, there's not a penny more." I shook my head and pulled a small flash drive from my pocket, placing it gently on the table. "This contains the complete source code for the Aegis Intelligent Systems platform I developed." I watched as the color drained from Victoria's face. "If I'm walking away with nothing, then I'm not leaving anything behind." Sarah's face went white. She knew exactly what that system meant to their bottom line. Miller Corp's revenue growth for the past 2 years was entirely dependent on Aegis. Without it, the company would spiral into chaos. "Ethan, what are you trying to say?" Sarah's voice trembled slightly. I offered a faint smile. "It's simple. The party's over. The system I built leaves with me." Victoria panicked. "No, you developed that system while you were part of this family. Legally, it belongs to Miller Corp." "Is that so?" I pulled another document from my other pocket. "This is the prenuptial agreement I had notarized 3 years ago, right before we went to City Hall. It explicitly states that all my intellectual property remains my own personal asset." "Surely you haven't forgotten about this, Victoria?" Victoria's expression was ghastly. Of course, she remembered. She had laughed at me back then, mocking a kid with nothing to his name for wanting a prenup. Now, that document was a ticking time bomb. "So what do you want?" Sarah asked, her jaw tight. I stood up and brushed the imaginary dust from my hands. "I don't want anything. We're getting a divorce, so let's make it a clean break. I'll be moved out by tomorrow. From now on, we go our separate ways." "Wait," a smooth voice called out from the grand staircase. We all turned. A handsome young man in a tailored suit was descending slowly, exuding an aura of old money confidence and grace. I knew him. Lucas Vance, Sarah's childhood sweetheart. In my past life, while I was rotting in a cell, this was the man who had swooped in and won her back. Even worse, he had used my technology to found his own company, turning it into a multi-billion-dollar enterprise. "Lucas, what are you doing here?" A blush immediately rose on Sarah's cheeks. I hadn't seen that look on her face in a very long time. Lucas walked to the center of the room, his eyes lingering on me for a moment before he flashed a deceptively friendly smile. "I heard Sarah was getting a divorce, so I came to see how she was doing." He turned his attention to me. "Ethan Hayes, right? Sarah's mentioned you. To be honest, that AI system you developed is genuinely impressive. My company happens to be looking for exactly that kind of talent." I raised an eyebrow. "And let's make a deal. You leave the system with the Millers, and I'll buy it from them. In fact, I'll pay you directly, double their offer. $20 million. On top of that, I'll hire you as the chief technology officer of my company. $1 million salary. How's that for a sincere offer?" Lucas wore a look of absolute certainty, as if he couldn't imagine anyone refusing such a deal. A glimmer of hope appeared in Sarah's eyes, and Victoria visibly relaxed. If I accepted Lucas's offer, the Millers would not only keep the system, but they could also use this as an opportunity to push their daughter and Lucas together. I was silent for a few seconds, and then I burst out laughing. Lucas, do you have any idea what this system is actually worth? I stopped laughing, my gaze turning sharp. Once this platform is fully commercialized, its market value will be, conservatively, over $5 billion. And you want to buy it for $20 million? Lucas's smile faltered for a split second before he regained his composure. Ethan, you need to be realistic. The system isn't finished. It requires a massive capital investment and a huge marketing push. It's a big risk. The price I'm offering is more than fair. Fair? I scoffed. If I remember correctly, your company, Vance Industries, only managed to go public last year by plagiarizing another startup's technology. Are you trying to pull the same trick again? The color drained from Lucas's face. Ethan, what the hell is that supposed to mean? It means I'm warning you not to take me for a fool. I picked up the flash drive and spun it between my fingers. The system is not for sale, and I'm not looking for a job. Victoria was frantic. Ethan, don't be a fool. This is your last chance. I glanced at her, my voice chillingly calm. Victoria, I've already agreed to walk away with nothing. What more is there to lose? Sarah suddenly stood up, her eyes glistening with tears. Ethan, does it really have to come to this? Haven't I been good to you these past 3 years? Seeing her tears, I felt nothing. In my past life, she showed no such emotion when she testified against me in court, claiming I had deceived her into marriage. You were good to me, Sarah, I nodded. But some things can't be fixed with feelings. I turned and walked toward the door. Halfway there, I paused and looked back. Oh, I almost forgot to mention. I filed for full copyright and patent protection on the Aegis system yesterday with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. As of today, any unauthorized use of this system constitutes infringement. Victoria was trembling with rage. I gave a little wave. Enjoy your evening. I won't be a bother anymore. The moment I stepped out of the Miller mansion, I took a deep, cleansing breath of the cool Connecticut air. 3 years of humiliation were finally over. Back in my tiny, rented room in Queens, I fired up my laptop, my fingers flying across the keyboard. I might have walked away with nothing, but that didn't mean I was going to stay that way. My past life had taught me that technology wasn't enough. You needed capital and connections. Thankfully, this second chance came with a crucial advantage. I knew what was going to happen in the next few years. For instance, I knew the ticker symbol of an obscure tech stock that was about to skyrocket tomorrow. I knew that next month, a small startup called Future Wave Tech would be on the verge of bankruptcy, but that its core technology would be acquired by a titan of the industry for a massive sum in 2 years. And I knew that next week, there was a major tech conference where I could find a real, visionary investor. I picked up my phone and dialed a number. Hello, Mr. Shaw. This is Ethan Hayes. Chapter 2 what? Ethan chose to walk away with nothing? In a lavish corner office at the Vance Industries headquarters, Lucas Vance's hand trembled as he held his phone. Yes, sir. He moved out of the Miller estate last night. He's now living in a rundown apartment building in Queens. His assistant reported from the other end. Lucas hung up, his face dark and menacing. He had assumed Ethan was just putting on a show, playing the martyr. He figured that after a few days of being broke, Ethan would come crawling back, begging for a deal. He never expected a guy to have this much backbone, to actually choose to be left with nothing. What worried him more was that Ethan's Aegis system was a genuine game changer. If a competitor got their hands on it, it would be a devastating blow to Vance Industries. No, I have to get that system, Lucas muttered, a ruthless glint in his eye. He picked up his intercom. Send in Mr. Jones. A few minutes later, a man in his 50s entered the office. His name was Walter Jones, Lucas's trusted fixer, the man who handled the company's less-than-savory affairs. Mr. Vance, you wanted to see me? Walter asked respectfully. Lucas quickly explained the situation. Is there a way to make Ethan hand over the system voluntarily? Walter considered it. This Ethan Hayes has no powerful connections. Now that he's cut off from Miller's, he should be easy to handle. I can have a few guys go negotiate with him. No. Lucas shook his head. The guy is smarter than we thought. Brute force will only backfire. We need a more subtle approach. Walter stroked his chin. In that case, I can make a call to the IRS. See if we can't find some discrepancies in his past tax filings. That's a good start, Lucas nodded. Also, dig into his personal life, his friends, any relationships. See if there's anyone we can use for leverage. Understood. Walter turned and left. Lucas stared out at the river of traffic below, a cold smirk playing on his lips. Ethan, did you really think walking away with nothing would be the end of it? You're so naive. Meanwhile, in my Queen's apartment, I was deep in a heated phone conversation. Mr. Shaw, I know you're worried about the risk, but please, trust my judgment on this, I said, my tone sincere. This stock is guaranteed to hit its circuit breaker tomorrow. If you're willing to work with me, I promise to double your money in 3 days. There was a moment of silence on the other end, then the weary voice of an older man. Ethan, it's not that I don't trust you, but the market has been incredibly volatile lately. I don't have much liquid capital. The most I can risk is $50,000. Kevin Shaw was my college roommate's father, an old Wall Street fox who had been playing the markets for over 20 years. In my past life, he had helped me when I was at my lowest, and I was forever grateful. 50,000 is plenty, I said with a smile. Tomorrow, write the opening bell by Astrodyne Incorporated, ticker ASDD. And remember, you have to buy it before 10 a.m. Astrodyne. Kevin was clearly familiar with the stock. Isn't that company about to be delisted? That's precisely why this is such an opportunity, I said, keeping him in suspense. Mr. Shaw, trust me on this one. You won't be disappointed. Kevin finally agreed. After hanging up, I let out a long breath. The greatest advantage of reliving the past was knowing the future. Tomorrow, Astrodyne Incorporated was going to announce a major technological breakthrough, and its stock would surge for 3 consecutive days. A $50,000 investment would turn into more than $130,000 in just 3 days. With that seed money, I could move on to the next phase of my plan. The next morning, I put on the only suit I owned and headed to the Grand Hyatt in Midtown Manhattan. The 2024 AI Development Forum was being held there today, a gathering of top executives and investors from the nation's leading tech companies. My target was one man in particular, David Chun, the founder of Keystone Ventures. In my past life, I had heard about him from an inmate in prison. He had an uncanny business sense, specializing in early-stage tech investments. His eye for talent was legendary, and his investments were aggressive. Most importantly, he had a reputation for being an honest player in a field of sharks. The conference hall was buzzing with people. I found a quiet corner and waited for my chance. Around 10 a.m., David Chun finished a panel discussion and was making his way out of the hall. I immediately moved to intercept him. Mr. Chun, hello. My name is Ethan Hayes. I handed him a simple, self-printed business card. David Chun was a man in his 50s with graying hair, but his eyes were sharp and energetic. He took the card and glanced at it, a flicker of confusion on his face. Ethan Hayes? The name sounds familiar. Have we met? No, sir, but you may have heard of the Aegis AI system I developed, I said, getting straight to the point. A spark of recognition lit up David's eyes. Ah, so you're the one. I have indeed heard about that system. It's supposed to be revolutionary. But aren't you with Miller Corp? I've recently left the company, I said with a slight smile. Now I'm looking for a reliable partner to bring the system to market. David was clearly interested, but maintained a professional caution. Mr. Hayes, could you tell me more about your system? I was prepared for this. I spent the next 10 minutes giving him a detailed breakdown of Aegis's technical architecture and its market potential. David listened intently, nodding from time to time, the excitement in his eyes growing more and more apparent. Mr. Hayes, I'll be frank. Your technology has incredible potential, David said finally. But I have one question. With the resources of Miller Corp, why wouldn't they launch this themselves? Why did you leave? I had anticipated this question. Mr. Chun, you might find this hard to believe, but I was kicked out. I gave him a brief, sanitized version of what had happened, omitting the part about reliving the past, and simply saying we had a falling out over creative differences. David listened and nodded thoughtfully. It seems the Millers have thrown away a diamond while chasing pebbles. But their loss could be our gain. He paused, then continued. Mr. Hayes, if you're serious about starting your own venture, I'm prepared to invest. But I have a few conditions. Please go on, I said, my heart racing, though I kept my expression calm. First, I need a detailed business plan. Second, I need a full, live demonstration of the system. And third, you need to have a reliable team in place. David laid out his terms. No problem. I agreed without hesitation. Give me 1 week. I'll have everything ready for you. David nodded, satisfied. He handed me his card. Then I'll see you in a week. And by the way, if everything checks out, I'm prepared to offer a $30 million investment for a 30% stake. $30 million. My heart pounded in my chest. With that kind of investment, I could assemble a team and capture the market before Lucas Vance even knew what hit him. I look forward to working with you, I said, extending my hand. Likewise, David replied, shaking it firmly. Just then, a commotion erupted at the entrance to the hall. I turned to see Lucas Vance, dressed in a bespoke suit and flanked by 2 bodyguards, striding into the conference. He spotted me immediately, a look of surprise on his face, and then quickly walked over. Ethan, what are you doing here? Lucas's tone was sharp. I smiled faintly. It's a public event, Lucas. Why wouldn't I be here? Lucas's gaze shifted to David Chun, a hint of suspicion in his eyes. Mr. Chun, a pleasure. I'm Lucas Vance of Vance Industries. David shook his hand politely, but was clearly unimpressed. In the investment world, Vance Industries had a reputation for lacking innovation and originality. Mr. Hayes, since Mr. Vance is here, I'll take my leave. Remember our appointment, David said with a nod to me, then walked away. Lucas watched David's retreating back, his expression turning sour. Ethan, don't tell me you're trying to partner with David Chun. What's it to you? I shot back. Lucas took a deep breath, visibly suppressing his anger. Ethan, I'm asking you one last time. Are you sure you won't reconsider my offer? $20 million. That's a very generous price. I'm not interested. My tone was final. Lucas nodded slowly, a dangerous glint in his eye. Fine. Very good. I hope you don't live to regret this, Ethan. With that, he turned and stalked away. Watching him go, I felt a surge of caution. I knew Lucas wouldn't give up easily. A much more intense battle was about to begin. But I wasn't afraid. I had the memories of my past life. I knew every move he was going to make. More importantly, I had just found a true partner. This time, I was going to make everyone who looked down on me pay the price. Chapter 3 at 2 in the afternoon, my phone rang. Mr. Hayes, Astrodyne just surged. It hit the circuit breaker. Kevin Shaw's voice crackled with excitement. My God, how did you know? I glanced at the stock app on my phone. Astrodyne was locked at its upper limit, with a massive trading volume. The $50,000 principal had made $10,000 in a single day. Don't get too excited, Mr. Shaw. This is just the beginning, I said calmly. Hold it tomorrow and the day after. Sell at the end of the 3rd day. You really think it's going to keep climbing? Kevin was in disbelief. Trust me, I said firmly. You'll see in 3 days. After hanging up, I got to work on the business plan. David Chun might be interested in my tech, but as an investor, he cared more about the business model and market viability. I spent the entire afternoon creating a detailed PowerPoint presentation. With memories of my past life, I knew exactly where the AI market was headed over the next few years, which made my business plan look incredibly prescient and insightful. Just as I was about to head out for dinner, my doorbell buzzed. I opened it to find 2 men in suits standing outside. Are you Mr. Ethan Hayes? We're from the IRS, one of them said, flashing a badge. We've received a tip regarding potential tax evasion. We need you to cooperate with an investigation. I smirked inwardly. Lucas was moving faster than I'd expected. Of course. Please come in, I said calmly, stepping aside. The 2 agents entered and began a thorough inspection of my meager belongings. They went through my laptop, my phone, my bank records, and even sifted through my trash. Mr. Hayes, what was your primary source of income for the past 3 years? One agent asked. My salary from Miller Corp., along with some freelance consulting fees, I answered truthfully. Consulting fees? Can you provide the relevant contracts and invoices? I pulled a folder from my desk drawer. It's all in here. The agent spent the next 2 hours meticulously poring over every document, but they found nothing. My books were clean. Every dollar was accounted for, and every cent of tax was paid. Mr. Hayes, we apologize for the inconvenience, one of the agents finally said. There appear to be no issues with your tax filings. As soon as they left, my phone rang again. Ethan, you're more careful than I thought. Lucas's voice came through the line, laced with annoyance. Falsely reporting someone to the IRS is a serious offense, Lucas, I said coldly. If an investigation finds no wrongdoing, the person who made the report can face legal consequences. Lucas was clearly taken aback. He hadn't expected me to call his bluff. Don't get cocky, Ethan. I have plenty of ways to deal with you. Is that so? I'll be waiting, I said, then hung up. Lucas's first attack had failed, but I knew he wouldn't stop there. Sure enough, over the next few days, a series of problems arose. First, my landlord suddenly informed me he needed the apartment back for personal use. I knew Lucas was behind it, but I had no proof. I was forced to find a new place to live. Then, malicious rumors started spreading on social media and tech forums, calling me a con artist who scammed investors. The worst part was when someone, posing as me, posted a series of offensive statements online, which nearly led to me being questioned by the police. Through it all, I remained calm. My past life had taught me that the more difficult things got, the more important it was to keep a level head. 3 days later, Astrodyne hit its third consecutive limit up. Kevin Shaw's $50,000 had turned into $132,000, more than double his initial investment. Ethan, you're a miracle worker. Kevin was practically incoherent with excitement over the phone. I made over $80,000. I'm giving you half. Mr. Shaw, we agreed on a 70-30 split. You keep your 70%, I said with a laugh. But I don't need the cash right now. Just hold on to it for me. There's an even bigger opportunity coming next week. Bigger? Kevin gasped. Bigger than a stock doubling in 3 days? Absolutely, I said mysteriously. Next Wednesday. Mark your calendar. After the call, I began preparing for my next move. Next Wednesday, a company called Stellaris Systems was set to be acquired by an international tech giant, and its stock would soar by 300%. It was the clearest opportunity one remembered. But before that, I had to solve a more immediate problem, securing an office and an initial team. My 1-week deadline with David Chun was approaching, and I needed to show him tangible progress. After a few days of searching, I found a suitable office in a tech park in Dumbo, Brooklyn. It wasn't large, but it was modern and the rent was reasonable. As for the team, I already had 2 people in mind. During my time at Miller Corp, I knew a programmer named Leo Martinez. He was brilliant and hardworking, but his quiet, introverted nature meant he was constantly overlooked. I remembered he was now working for a small company, underpaid and undervalued. The perfect time to poach him. There was also a product manager named Rachel Kim. She had an incredible intuition for market trends and had helped me analyze product requirements in my past life. I knew she had just quit her job and was looking for a new opportunity. I contacted both of them and arranged to meet at a coffee shop. Mr. Hayes, the project you're describing sounds incredibly promising, Leo said, pushing up his glasses, his voice filled with excitement. I've always been fascinated by AI and have been looking for a chance to work on something meaningful. What's the compensation package? Rachel was more direct. To be blunt, I'm in need of stable income right now. Leo, your base salary will be $15,000 a month, plus performance bonuses, I said, then turned to Rachel. Rachel, your base will be $12,000 a month, but with significant stock options once the product launches successfully. Both of them were more than satisfied. In the current market, those were excellent salaries for a startup. But I need to be upfront about one thing, I said, my tone becoming serious. We're in the startup phase. The work will be grueling, and there will be a lot of uncertainty. If you can't handle that kind of pressure, now is the time to back out. Leo nodded without a second's hesitation. Mr. Hayes, I'm with you. Rachel thought for a moment, then agreed as well. I don't have any better offers right now. I'm willing to take the risk. With my initial team secured, my confidence grew. On Friday afternoon, I arrived at David Chin's office at Keystone Ventures. It was located in a skyscraper on Wall Street, with an interior that screamed success. Mr. Hayes, please have a seat, David greeted me warmly. Do you have everything prepared? I presented my meticulously crafted business plan, detailing the Aegis system's technical advantages, market positioning, revenue model, and future development roadmap. The presentation lasted an hour. David listened intently, asking sharp, insightful questions throughout. Mr. Hayes, your plan is very professional, David said at the end. But I still have a few concerns. Please go ahead. First, the technology risk. Your system is advanced, but the AI field is evolving at a breakneck pace. How can you guarantee you'll stay ahead of the curve? I've considered that, I said, fully prepared. Our advantage isn't just our current technology, but our capacity for continuous innovation. I have a detailed R&D roadmap that will ensure we maintain our technological lead for the next 3 years. David nodded. Second, market competition. There are already several players in this space, including Vance Industries. How will you stand out? At the mention of Vance Industries, I scoffed. Mr. Chun, Vance Industries may seem formidable, but they lack core technology. Most of their products are cobbled together from acquisitions, with no proprietary IP. As soon as the market gets truly competitive, they'll be exposed. You're very confident, David smiled. My final question, your financial plan. Is $30 million enough? It's more than enough, I said, presenting a detailed budget. $10 million for R&D, 10 for marketing and sales, and the rest for operational costs. If all goes according to plan, we'll be profitable within a year. David carefully studied my financial projections and nodded in satisfaction. Mr. Hayes, I've decided to invest, but I have one additional condition. What is it? I'll be appointing a CFO to your company to oversee the funds, he explained. This is standard practice for our firm. I hope you understand. No problem at all. I agreed immediately. It was a common clause in venture capital, and I had no reason to refuse. Then it's a pleasure to be in business with you, David said, standing up to shake my hand. A pleasure. As I walked out of the Keystone Ventures building, I felt an incredible sense of relief. With $30 million secured, I finally had the capital to go head-to-head with Lucas Vance. But just at that moment, my phone rang. Ethan, I hear you found an investor. Lucas's voice was dripping with malice. But I wouldn't celebrate just yet. What do you mean? I frowned. You'll find out soon enough, Lucas sneered, then hung up. A sense of unease washed over me. Sure enough, less than 10 minutes later, David Chin called. Mr. Hayes, I'm very sorry. David's voice was heavy. I just received a call. Someone filed an official complaint with the FTC, accusing your new company of false advertising. While I trust your integrity, I have to put the investment on hold until this is cleared up. My heart sank. Lucas's move was vicious. Even if the complaint was eventually dismissed as baseless, the investigation alone would consume precious time and energy. And at this critical juncture, any negative publicity could scare away an investor. Mr. Chun, I understand your position, I said, forcing down my anger. But I can assure you, these claims are completely malicious. I believe you, Ethan. But business is business, and we have to be cautious. I hope you understand, David said, his tone apologetic. Once this is resolved, we can revisit our partnership. I hung up the phone, my fists clenched. That bastard Lucas. His tactics were getting dirtier, but I wasn't going to lose. If he wanted to play dirty, I'd play right along with him. This time, I would show him what it felt like to be hoisted by his own petard. Chapter 4: The FTC's investigation came more quickly than I had anticipated. The next morning, 2 agents showed up at the office space I had just leased in Brooklyn. Their demeanor was professional, but their questions were pointed and thorough. Mr. Hayes, we've received a complaint alleging that your company has engaged in deceptive marketing practices, one of the agents stated, opening a thick file of documents. The complainant claims that your product's technology is not fully developed, despite being advertised as a market-leading solution. I scanned the complaint. It was detailed, filled with technical jargon. Lucas had clearly put a lot of effort into making it look legitimate. These accusations are entirely baseless, I responded calmly. My technology is indeed cutting edge, and I have the patent certificates to prove it. I produced the patent filings and technical documentation I had prepared, walking them through the core principles of the Aegis system. The 2 agents examined the materials carefully, exchanging glances. Mr. Hayes, based on this documentation, your technology does appear to be advanced, one of them conceded. However, the complainant also provided what they claim is internal data showing significant flaws in your system. I took the supposed internal data and, after a brief look, couldn't help but laugh. This is an obvious fabrication, I said, pointing to a specific page. Look at these technical parameters. They are completely inconsistent with our system's actual performance. In this data format, it's not even our company's standard. The agents looked at each other. One of them asked, "Do you have any idea who might be making these false allegations?" I paused for a moment before replying, "I have my suspicions, but no concrete proof. I trust that your investigation will uncover the truth." The inquiry lasted the entire morning. In the end, the FTC concluded that the complaint was unsubstantiated and my company had not violated any regulations. However, the damage was already done. The incident had caught the attention of the media, and a few irresponsible outlets began circulating speculative stories online. Tech startup hit with fraud allegations. One headline read. Another was more personal. Man who married into wealthy family accused of deceptive business practices in new venture. Although the FTC later issued a statement clearing my name, the negative publicity lingered. Most importantly, David Chun had indeed postponed his investment. I sat in the empty office, gazing out at the bustling Brooklyn streets, feeling the weight of the situation. Leo and Rachel, who had yet to officially start, were also unsettled by the news. Just then my phone rang. "Mr. Hayes, the news about Stellara Systems is confirmed." Kevin Shaw's excited voice crackled through the line. "At 10 a.m. tomorrow, they're announcing an acquisition by TechCorp. The purchase price is 4 times its current market value." My spirits lifted instantly. Stellara Systems, this was one of the biggest opportunities one remembered from my past life. I had missed out then, but I wouldn't make the same mistake twice. "Mr. Shaw, how much liquid capital do you have on hand right now?" I asked. "Aside from the money I'm holding for you, I can pull together about 800,000, Kevin said. "But that's my entire nest egg. Are you absolutely sure about this?" "I'd stake my reputation on it," I said, my voice unwavering. "Buy Stellara Systems before the market opens tomorrow, and sell before it closes in the afternoon. Make sure the trade is completed before the official announcement." Kevin, trusting me after the Astrodyne success, agreed. After hanging up, I began to formulate my next plan. If the Stellara trade went as expected, we would net over $2 million. With that kind of capital, I would no longer be dependent on David Chen's investment. I could bootstrap the company myself. More importantly, I was going to use this opportunity to give Lucas Vance a little surprise. I picked up the phone and dialed a number I hadn't called in a long time. "Hello, Mark. This is Ethan Hayes." "Yes, the one from the news. I have a major story for you." Mark Sullivan was a veteran investigative journalist for Tech Frontier magazine, specializing in exposing the industry's dark underbelly. We had crossed paths a few times in my past life. He was a man with a strong sense of justice. Vance Industries involved in technology theft. Mark's interest was clearly piqued. "Mr. Hayes, do you have any evidence?" "I have information from an inside source," I said. "It's not something I can discuss over the phone. Let's meet in person." After setting a meeting place, I began to compile my evidence. Most of it was true, records of Vance Industries' shady practices over the past few years. I had unintentionally learned some of their secrets during my time with the Miller family. The next morning, the stock market opened. Following my instructions, Kevin Shaw invested the full $800,000 into Stellara Systems. At exactly 10 a.m., Stellara officially announced the acquisition. The stock price exploded, hitting its circuit breaker at the opening bell. At 2 in the afternoon, with the stock at its peak, Kevin sold the entire position. $800,000 had turned into $2.4 million, a net profit of $1.6 million. "Ethan, I am speechless. You're a prophet." Kevin was ecstatic over the phone. "This is like a miracle." I smiled. "Mr. Shaw, as we agreed, 70-30. My share is $480,000. "Of course. I'm wiring it to you right now." Kevin agreed without hesitation. With this capital, I finally had the breathing room I needed. At 3 p.m., I met Mark Sullivan at a quiet cafe. He was a man in his 40s with gold-rimmed glasses and a scholarly air. "Mr. Hayes, about this technology theft at Vance Industries. Can you give me the details?" Mark asked, taking out a digital recorder. I handed him a folder I had prepared. "Mark, this file contains a record of Vance Industries' greatest hits over the past few years. If you do some digging, I'm confident you'll find some very interesting things." Mark examined the documents, his brow furrowing deeper with each page he turned. "If this is all true, Vance Industries is in serious trouble." "The trouble runs deep," I nodded. "But I trust you'll handle the story with care. There's a lot of sensitive information in there." Mark was a professional, He knew how to navigate these waters. We talked for over an hour, and by the end, he had a comprehensive picture of the situation. "Mr. Hayes, thank you for the tip," Mark said as he left. "If my investigation confirms this, we'll publish the story next week." "You're welcome. It's about time someone stood up for what's right," I said with a calm smile. Back at the office, I called Leo and Rachel and officially invited them to join the team. With funding now secured, they both readily accepted. The next day, Leo and Rachel officially started. Our team was small, but it finally felt like a real company. "So, boss, what's our top priority?" Leo asked. "Refine the system and prepare for launch," I said. "We need to release a market-ready version within a month to beat our competitors to the punch." Rachel was already looking through the product requirement document I had given her. "Ethan, your roadmap is very detailed and has huge market potential. But I suggest we first launch a minimum viable product to test the market's reaction." "Rachel's right," I nodded. "We'll start with an MVP and iterate based on user feedback." As we were deep in discussion, my phone rang. "Ethan, you despicable bastard." Lucas Vance's furious voice roared from the other end. "How dare you smear my company's name?" I feigned innocence. "Lucas, I have no idea what you're talking about." "Smear your name? Don't play dumb with me. That article by Mark Sullivan, it has your fingerprints all over it," he seethed. I feigned a moment of realization. "Oh, you mean the Tech Frontier story about corporate espionage? Was that about you?" "Ethan, you just wait. This isn't over," Lucas yelled before slamming down the phone. I set my phone down, feeling a sense of satisfaction. Mark's article had been published the day before and was already causing a stir in the industry. While it didn't name Vance Industries directly, anyone with an ounce of industry knowledge knew exactly who it was about. Most importantly, the article had prompted many investors to reevaluate their positions in Vance Industries. I heard that several of their pending deals have been delayed or canceled. "Did you make a powerful enemy, Ethan?" Rachel asked, a hint of concern in her voice. "Nothing to worry about. Just a competitor who likes to play dirty," I said with a reassuring smile. "Let's ignore the noise and focus on our work." Over the next few days, the team threw themselves into product development. Leo's technical skills were truly remarkable. Under his guidance, the Aegis system's performance improved by over 30%. Rachel also provided invaluable product insights, making the system more aligned with market needs. A week later, our MVP was complete. While it was still light on features, it perfectly demonstrated our core technology. "So, when do we go public with this?" Leo asked. I looked at the calendar. It was Friday. "Next Tuesday. We're holding a product launch event." "So soon?" Rachel was worried. "We're not fully prepared. Time is a luxury we don't have," I said, my tone firm. "The timing is perfect. We can't afford to miss this window." In truth, I had a specific reason for choosing next Tuesday. I remembered from my past life that Vance Industries was holding a major product launch the following day, Wednesday, to announce their new AI system. If I could launch before them, I would seize the narrative and steal their thunder. We spent the entire weekend working around the clock, preparing for the launch event. We were exhausted, but everyone was buzzing with excitement. This would be our official debut and my chance to prove myself to the world. Chapter 5, we booked the largest conference hall at the downtown Hilton for the launch event. It cost a small fortune, $10,000, but first impressions were critical. I couldn't afford to cut corners on the details. "Ethan, all the invitations have been sent. We have over 80 confirmed attendees so far," Rachel reported, holding a list. "That includes representatives from a dozen venture capital firms, over 30 tech companies, and about 20 journalists." I nodded, pleased. The turnout was better than I had expected. Word about the Aegis system was clearly spreading. "Is David Shun from Keystone Ventures on the list?" I asked. "Confirmed," Rachel nodded. His assistant made it clear, though, that he's only attending to observe, and it doesn't signify an investment commitment. "That's fine. Let him see what we're capable of," I said with a confident smile. On Tuesday morning, the launch event began as scheduled. The conference hall was packed, the atmosphere electric. Dressed in a new, sharp suit, I stood on stage, calmly presenting the technical features and market applications of the Aegis system. "Ladies and gentlemen, the future of artificial intelligence is here," I declared, gesturing to the dynamic visuals on the large screen behind me. The Aegis system goes beyond traditional image recognition. It leverages deep learning for intelligent prediction. This will fundamentally change the way we live and work. The audience was captivated, murmuring in appreciation. When I demonstrated the system's real-time object recognition capabilities, a hush fell over the room. The technology was truly astounding. "Mr. Hayes, what is the system's accuracy rate?" A journalist called out from the audience. "In a standardized testing environment, the accuracy rate exceeds 99.5%, I answered confidently. "This is a world-class performance metric. What about the cost? Is it affordable for an average business?" Another reporter asked. "Our pricing strategy is designed to be accessible. Even small and medium-sized businesses can afford it," I replied, having anticipated this question. "The basic package starts at just $499 per month for the full suite of services." This price point caught many by surprise. Competing products on the market cost tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars. Our pricing was incredibly competitive. The event proceeded flawlessly. Afterward, I was swarmed by investors and corporate representatives, all eager to exchange business cards and discuss potential partnerships. To my satisfaction, David Chun approached me personally after the presentation. "Ethan, that was a very impressive launch," he said, his tone much warmer than before. "Your product truly has immense potential." "Thank you for the kind words, Mr. Chun," I said modestly. "About the investment." David paused for a moment. "If you're still interested, I'd like to reopen negotiations." I shook my head. "I appreciate the offer, Mr. Chun, but for now, we're no longer seeking external investment." David was visibly taken aback. "No investment? How are you funding this?" "We've secured sufficient seed capital, and our pre-sales are already looking very strong," I said with a faint smile. "Of course, if Keystone Ventures is interested in a strategic partnership, I'm open to that discussion." David nodded thoughtfully, clearly weighing the new possibilities. Just then, a commotion at the back of the hall drew our attention. I turned to see Lucas Vance, flanked by a few of his executives, striding purposefully into the room. "What a brilliant presentation." Lucas applauded sarcastically, a mocking smile on his face. "But I have to ask, Ethan, where did you get the core technology for this system?" The room fell silent. All eyes were on us. I looked at him coldly. "What are you implying, Lucas?" "It's simple," Lucas said, pulling a document from his briefcase. "This is an internal technical document from Miller Corp, dated 3 years ago. It clearly outlines the development process for this very system. According to the employment contract, the intellectual property for this technology belongs to Miller Corporation." A wave of murmurs swept through the audience. I could see the doubt creeping into people's faces. I knew Lucas's plan was to publicly humiliate me and destroy my credibility. "Lucas, may I see that document?" I asked calmly. He smugly handed it over. I glanced at it for a moment, then chuckled. "Ladies and gentlemen, this document is indeed from Miller Corp," I said, holding it up for everyone to see. "But all this proves is that I did, in fact, develop this system while I was employed there. It does not prove that Miller Corp owns the intellectual property." I reached into my own jacket pocket and produced another document. "This is my employment contract with Miller Corp, along with my notarized prenuptial agreement. Both documents explicitly state that all technical creations and intellectual property developed by me remain my personal assets. This is legally binding." The color drained from Lucas's face. He clearly had not anticipated this. "Furthermore," I continued, "I have already filed for and been granted the relevant patent from the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. The official certificates are right here." I held up the patent certificates. The room erupted in applause, with many people nodding in approval of my foresight. Lucas, cornered and exposed, tried one last desperate move. "Even if the patent is yours, you use company resources to develop it. You should have to compensate them." "Compensation?" I scoffed. "Lucas, are you trying to collect a debt on behalf of Miller Corp? Or is there some special relationship between you and the Miller family?" That question shut him down completely. Everyone in the room was an industry insider. If he admitted to a connection with the Millers, it would confirm that his entire stunt was a premeditated, malicious attack. "Don't get too comfortable, Ethan," Lucas snarled, his face red with fury. "Do you think this means you've won? We're holding our own product launch tomorrow. Then you'll see what real technological power looks like." With that, he and his entourage beat a hasty retreat. The room broke into another round of applause. This public confrontation hadn't damaged my reputation. It had exposed Lucas Vance for the fraud he was. "That was beautifully handled, Ethan," David Shin said, walking over with a look of admiration. "It seems my earlier concerns were entirely misplaced." After the launch, we were flooded with partnership inquiries. A dozen companies signed trial agreements on the spot, providing over $200,000 in upfront payments. Even more exciting, a large manufacturing firm offered to buy an exclusive license for $1 million. "We did it, Ethan. We really did it." Leo was so excited his face was flushed. "We're getting this many customers right out of the gate." Rachel was equally thrilled. "At this rate, our annual revenue could easily top $5 million. I nodded, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. But I knew the real challenge was just beginning. Lucas's launch event was tomorrow, and he would surely have something up his sleeve. I needed to be ready. That evening, I did some digging into the Vance Industries launch. Their marketing materials announced a new product called Intellivision, claiming it was a major breakthrough in AI. From my past life, I knew that Intellivision was actually technology Lucas had acquired at great expense from an overseas company and rebranded as his own. While the tech was decent, it was costly and plagued by stability issues. I smirked and picked up my phone to call Mark Sullivan. "Mark, are you planning on attending the Vance Industries launch tomorrow? I have a feeling it's going to be very interesting." The next morning, the Vance Industries launch took place at the Marriott Marquis. I didn't attend, but I sent Rachel to gather competitive intelligence. At 2 p.m., Rachel returned to the office, a strange expression on her face. "You were right, Ethan," she said, shaking her head. "Lucas put on a big show, but the product demo was a complete disaster." "What happened?" I asked, curious. "The system crashed. At the most critical moment," Rachel explained. "Lucas was demonstrating its recognition features when the whole thing just froze. They couldn't get it to reboot. A lot of the journalists there caught it all on video. I couldn't help but laugh. I'd seen this happen in my past life. The Intellivision system was notoriously unstable under heavy loads. But that's not even the best part," Rachel continued. Mark Sullivan, the journalist, stood up and asked a few pointed technical questions. Lucas had no idea how to answer. He ended up fumbling and saying his engineers would follow up privately. Lucas had been utterly humiliated. In the tech world, a catastrophic failure during a live product launch was a public relations nightmare. Sure enough, by that afternoon, the media was already reporting on the disastrous launch event. Online forums were filled with comments questioning the technical competence of Vance Industries. That evening, my phone rang. It was Lucas. "Ethan, this was your doing, wasn't it?" His voice was a mixture of rage and desperation. "Lucas, you give me too much credit," I said innocently. "I don't have the power to make your system crash in front of a live audience." "You?" Lucas was so angry he was speechless. "You know, Lucas, you should probably focus your energy on improving your product quality instead of wasting time on baseless accusations," I said in a thoughtful tone. "After all, technology doesn't lie." Lucas slammed the phone down. I set my phone aside, feeling triumphant. In this round, I had won a decisive victory. Starting tomorrow, the Aegis system would officially enter the market, and Vance Industries would be facing a crisis of its own making. This war had only just begun. Chapter 6, a month later, the Aegis system's market performance had exceeded everyone's wildest expectations. "Ethan, the latest numbers are in." Rachel burst into my office, her face beaming. "We've signed over 200 enterprise clients. Our monthly recurring revenue just broke $100,000. I looked at the report she handed me, a thrill running through me. This was far beyond even my most optimistic projections. Even better, our customer satisfaction score is at 98%, with a renewal rate of over 95%. Rachel continued, rattling off the good news. "Clients are actively recommending us to others." Leo came in right behind her. "The tech team has good news too, boss. We've completed the system optimization. The new version is 40% more efficient and even more stable." Seeing the excitement on my team's faces, I felt a deep sense of pride. Our hard work had paid off. We had finally established a foothold in this fiercely competitive market. "Oh, And one more thing, Rachel said with a mysterious smile. The procurement department from Aura Technologies contacted us. They want to discuss a potential partnership. Oha? My eyes lit up. Aura was one of the biggest tech companies in the world. A partnership with them would launch us into a whole new league. Yes, they're very interested in our technology, especially its applications for smart devices, Rachel said, holding up an email. They've invited us to their headquarters in Cupertino next week to discuss a formal proposal. I nodded. We have to seize this opportunity. Rachel, you're coming with me. Just then, my personal cell phone rang. I frowned when I saw the caller ID. It was Sarah. Ethan, can we meet? Sarah's voice sounded weary. I hesitated. If you have something to say, you can say it over the phone. I want to apologize to you in person, she said, her voice catching. I've been thinking a lot about everything that's happened. An apology isn't necessary, I said coolly. We have no connection anymore. Ethan, please, just one meeting, she pleaded. For the sake of what we once had. I thought for a moment and finally relented. Fina, 8 o'clock tonight. The coffee shop near your old place. When I hung up, Leo and Rachel were looking at me with curiosity. Your ex-wife? Rachel asked gently. I nodded. Yeah, she probably wants to talk about something. Be careful, boss. A woman scorned can be unpredictable, Leo joked. I just smiled. I was genuinely curious about what Sarah wanted after all this time. That evening, I arrived at the coffee shop at 8 on the dot. Sarah was already there, looking gaunt. Her elegant makeup couldn't hide the exhaustion in her eyes. Ethan, thank you for coming, she said, her eyes immediately welling up. I sat down across from her, my expression neutral. What's this about, Sarah? She looked down, silent for a long moment before finally speaking. Ethan, I want to get back together. I nearly choked on my coffee. What? I know I treated you terribly, but I've had a lot of time to think, she said, looking up, tears streaming down her face. I've realized that I still love you. I'm nothing without you. I let out a cold laugh. Do you really think I believe that, Sarah? I'm serious, she insisted. This past month has been agony. I regret what I did every single day. I was wrong, and I'm willing to do anything to make it right. Is that so? I leaned back in my chair. Then tell me, what's your relationship with Lucas Vance? Sarah's expression froze. Lucas? We're just friends. Friends. I pulled out my phone and showed her a photo. This was taken last week. The two of you, having dinner at a Michelin star restaurant. You didn't look like just friends. I had hired a private investigator to keep tabs on Lucas. It felt slimy, but I needed to know what he was planning. Seeing the photo, Sarah's face turned pale. Ethan, did you have me followed? Not you. Him, I said, putting my phone away. Do you take me for a fool, Sarah? My career is taking off. So now you want to come back and claim a piece of it? No, that's not it, she denied frantically. I want to get back together because I love you. I stood up. If there's nothing else, I'm leaving. Wait, Sarah suddenly grabbed my hand. Ethan, I have something important to tell you. I looked down at her hand on my arm, my expression unyielding. What is it? Lucas is planning something against you, she whispered. He's teamed up with several of your competitors. They're planning a coordinated attack to crush your company. My interest was piqued, but I kept my face a mask of indifference. What kind of attack? They're going to launch a price war, undercutting you to steal your clients, she said urgently. They're also planning to engage in aggressive, unethical competition, and they might even resort to illegal tactics. This information was valuable, but I couldn't let her know that. Why are you telling me this? Because I don't want to see you get hurt, she said, her eyes looking sincere. And because I think what Lucas is doing is wrong. I was silent for a moment. What else do you know? Sarah hesitated. They're planning to make their move next week. Their goal is to steal at least 30% of your client base. This was indeed a critical piece of intel. My mind was already racing, formulating a counter-strategy. Sarah, thank you for telling me this, I said genuinely. But my answer is still no. We are not getting back together. The light in her eyes faded. Is there really no chance for us? None, I said firmly, shaking my head. We live in different worlds now. Sarah looked down, tears falling silently. I didn't try to comfort her. Some choices, once made, could not be unmade. After leaving the coffee shop, I immediately called Leo. Leo, it's an emergency. I need you at the office right now. An hour later, The three of us were gathered in the office. I told them what Sarah had revealed. That son of a bitch is desperate, Leo said angrily. Resorting to cheap tricks like this, it's pathetic. Rachel frowned in thought. Ethan, how should we respond? If they all start a price war, it's going to put a huge strain on our finances. I paced the office for a few minutes, then sat down. Don't worry, I have a plan. I took out a piece of paper and began sketching a diagram. They want a price war? We'll give them one. But we're not going to compete on who has the lowest price. We're going to compete on who provides the best value. What do you mean? Leo asked. We'll introduce tiered service plans, I explained, pointing to the diagram. We'll cut the price of our basic plan by 50%, but with some feature limitations. The premium plan will remain at the same price, but we'll add more advanced features. This way, we can fight the price war while catering to different customer needs. Rachel's eyes lit up. That's a great strategy. And we could also offer a free trial period, so customers can experience the product before committing. Exactly, I said, snapping my fingers. Our technology is far superior. Once a customer tries our system, they won't want to switch to an inferior product. Leo got excited. From a technical standpoint, we can add value too. I can develop a dedicated desktop client to make the system even more user-friendly. The three of us stayed up late into the night, hashing out a detailed counteroffensive. The next morning, we put our new strategy into action. We adjusted our pricing, streamlined our services, and doubled down on customer support. A week later, just as Sarah had warned, Lucas's attack began. Several of our competitors simultaneously launched low-cost alternatives, priced more than 40% below our original rates. But we were ready. We immediately rolled out our new tiered service plans. The result was something Lucas never saw coming. Not only did we not lose any clients, but our new sign-ups actually increased. It's incredible, Ethan, Rachel exclaimed, holding up the latest data. We didn't lose a single customer, and our new client acquisition is up 30% from last week. I smiled. It just goes to show customers don't just want cheap. They want value. Leo was equally thrilled. And a lot of clients are telling us that our new version is light years ahead of the competition. Just then, my phone rang. It was Lucas. Ethan, what kind of trick did you pull? His voice was a mix of fury and confusion. I feigned innocence. Tricks, Lucas? I have no idea what you're talking about. Don't play dumb. We cut our prices by 40%. Why aren't your customers switching? Maybe it's because our product is just better, I said calmly. You see, Lucas, a low price isn't enough. You also need to have a good product. Lucas was so angry he couldn't speak. He slammed the phone down. I set my phone aside, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. We had won another battle, and I knew this was just the beginning. Lucas Vance would not give up this easily. The fight was far from over, but I wasn't afraid. I had the confidence, the team, and the technology to win. This time, I would show everyone what real power looked like. Chapter 7, The Trip to Cupertino, was even more successful than I had imagined. The engineering team at Aura Technologies was incredibly impressed with the Aegis system, especially its potential applications in smartphones and IoT devices. Mr. Hayes, your technology is truly groundbreaking, said Mark Jensen, Aura's director of procurement, in their sleek, minimalist conference room. We would like to propose a deep strategic partnership. I exchanged an excited glance with Rachel. Mr. Jensen, what exactly did you have in mind? I asked. Mark presented a detailed proposal. We envision a three-pronged collaboration. First, integrating your AI recognition technology into our flagship smartphones. Second, implementing your system in our smart home product line. And third, developing customized enterprise solutions based on your platform. The scale of the proposal was staggering. If this deal went through, the contract value for the first year alone could exceed $50 million. Mr. Jensen, this is a massive undertaking. We'll need some time to evaluate the proposal, I said, maintaining my composure. Of course, he replied, understanding. However, we are hoping to finalize the partnership soon, as our next product launch schedule is already set. As soon as we returned from Cupertino, I convened a team meeting. This is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, I said, placing Aura's proposal on the table. But it's also a huge challenge. We'll need to complete all the technical integration and product optimization within 3 months. Leo studied the document, his brow furrowed. Ethan, 3 months is an extremely tight deadline, and Aura has notoriously high standards for quality. We have to be flawless. Then we'll expand the team, I said decisively. Start recruiting 10 top-tier programmers immediately. Offer them competitive salaries. Rachel was already crunching numbers. To meet Aura's requirements, we'll need a larger office and more equipment. I estimate an initial investment of at least $2 million. The investment is not an issue, I nodded. The key is to lock down this project before any of our competitors can. As we were discussing the details, Leo's phone rang. His expression grew darker and darker as he listened, and by the time he hung up, his face was ashen. "What's wrong?" I asked. "We have a huge problem," Leo said, his voice trembling slightly. "A friend just told me that Vance Industries held an emergency board meeting this morning. They've announced their intention to acquire 3 of our competitors." My heart sank. "Which 3? CloudSphere, IntelliCore, and New Horizon Tech," Leo listed them off. "If the acquisitions go through, Vance Industries will become the undisputed giant in our sector." Rachel gasped. "Those 3 companies combined have a market share of over 40%. If Lucas gets his hands on them, we'll be in serious trouble." I paced the office, my mind racing. I had some knowledge of these companies from my past life. I knew their strengths and weaknesses. "Leo, can you get me in touch with the CEOs of these 3 companies?" I asked. "I could try," Leo nodded. "But they're probably all deep in negotiations with Lucas right now." "Then we'll make a counteroffer," I declared. Leo and Rachel stared at me, stunned. "Ethan, do we have enough capital for that?" Rachel asked worriedly. "We don't have enough cash, but we can offer a stock swap," I said, a plan already forming in my mind. "And our technology is a much more attractive asset than anything Lucas can offer." Over the next 3 days, I met with the founders of all 3 companies. After a series of intense negotiations, I managed to persuade 2 of them to join us, CloudSphere and IntelliCore. The founder of CloudSphere, an engineer by trade, was repulsed by Lucas's speculative business practices. "Honestly, Ethan, I'd much rather partner with a true innovator like you," he said as he signed the agreement. "I know Lucas Vance's type. All talk, no substance." The situation with IntelliCore was even more dramatic. Their CEO had already reached a preliminary agreement with Lucas, but backed out at the last minute. "Mr. Hayes, I saw your technology demonstration, and I was blown away," she explained. "I believe the future is with you." Even though I hadn't acquired all 3, securing 2 of them was a massive boost to our capabilities. More importantly, it completely torpedoed Lucas's plan. That evening, as expected, Lucas called. "Ethan, you manipulative snake," he roared, his voice filled with fury. "How dare you sabotage my acquisitions?" "It's just business, Lucas. May the best man win," I said calmly. "Your offer wasn't compelling enough. Who's to blame for that? You just wait. This isn't over," he seethed. "I'll be waiting," I replied coolly. After hanging up, Rachel asked, "Ethan, aren't you worried he's going to get desperate?" "Of course I am," I admitted. "But we're not the same small company we were 3 months ago. If he wants to make a move, he'll have to think twice about whether he can afford it." It was true. In just 3 months, our company had transformed. We had grown from a team of 3 to over 80 employees. Our monthly revenue had surpassed $300,000, with clients all over the country. Most importantly, our partnership with Aura Technologies was moving into its final stages. Once that contract was signed, it would give us an unparalleled strategic advantage. But I knew Lucas wouldn't give up. From my past life, I remembered he had one last trump card, using his political connections to interfere with our business. Sure enough, a week later, trouble arrived. "Ethan, we have a problem." Leo rushed into my office. "The FTC has just issued an order for us to cease all operations pending a technical security review." I took the document and read it, my brow furrowing. The notice was sudden and the justification was flimsy. This had Lucas's fingerprints all over it. "Does this mean we can't conduct any business during the review?" Rachel asked, worried. "According to the order, all business related to our AI technology must be suspended," Leo said, his face grim. "The impact on us will be catastrophic." I thought for a moment, then picked up my phone and dialed a number. "Mark? It's Ethan. I have another big story for you." After hearing my story, Mark Sullivan was indignant. This is clearly a malicious abuse of the system. I'll launch a full investigation. At the same time, I contacted several respected academic experts in the AI field, asking them to help verify the security and compliance of our technology. 3 days later, TechFrontier published a bombshell report titled The Weaponization of Regulation: Unfair Competition in the Tech Sector. The article meticulously deconstructed the baselessness of the FTC's review and strongly hinted at a competitor's behind-the-scenes manipulation. The story caused an uproar in the industry, with many of our peers publicly voicing their support for us. The FTC, now under public pressure, expedited its review process. A week later, the results were in. Our technology was fully compliant, with no security vulnerabilities. We won, Ethan. Leo cheered, waving the official report. But I didn't feel like celebrating. The ordeal was over, but it had cost our company dearly. More importantly, it showed me that Lucas's network of influence was more extensive than I had realized. Just then, my phone rang. It wasn't Lucas. It was an unfamiliar number. Mr. Hayes, hello. This is Robert Miller. The voice on the other end was deep and authoritative. I froze. Robert Miller was Sarah's father, the chairman of Miller Corporation. A call from him at this moment could not be good news. Mr. Miller, hello? I replied politely. Mr. Hayes, I believe it's time we met. Robert's tone was calm but commanding. There are some matters we need to discuss in person. I considered it. All right. You name a time and place. Tomorrow afternoon, 3 o'clock. My office at the Miller Corp headquarters. After hanging up, I was lost in thought. Why would Robert Miller want to see me now? Rachel came over, her expression concerned. Ethan, you look troubled. Is there another problem? Maybe, maybe not, I said with a wry smile. But we'll face whatever comes. We're strong enough now to handle any challenge. But deep down I knew the real battle was just beginning. Chapter 8. The Miller Corp headquarters was a gleaming 48-story glass tower in the heart of the city's financial district. I had worked here for 3 years. I knew every corner of this building. But today, as I stepped into the lobby, I was a different man. Mr. Hayes, welcome. The receptionist greeted me politely. The chairman is expecting you in his office on the top floor. I took the private elevator to the 48th floor and was escorted into Robert Miller's office. It was a vast, opulent space, over 2,000 square feet, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city. Ethan, please have a seat, Robert Miller said, rising from behind his massive mahogany desk. He looked older than I remembered from just 3 months ago. His hair was whiter, and there was a weariness in his eyes that I hadn't seen before. Mr. Miller, why did you want to see me? I asked, getting straight to the point. He poured 2 cups of tea and sat down in the armchair opposite me. Ethan, congratulations on your success. I must admit, I underestimated you. You're too kind, I replied evenly. I've asked you here today to discuss 2 things, he said, taking a sip of his tea. First, the matter of the Aegis system. I tensed, but kept my expression neutral. What about it? I know you developed the system, and the intellectual property is legally yours, Robert said, his tone measured. But you can't deny that you used Miller Corp's resources during its development. And so, I asked. I would like to propose a new partnership, he said. Miller Corp is prepared to offer $100 million to acquire a 30% stake in your company. $100 million. The number made my heart skip a beat, but I quickly regained my composure, knowing there had to be a catch. What are the conditions? I asked. No special conditions. A standard equity partnership, he said with a thin smile. Of course, we would expect to be given preferential access to the technology. I shook my head. I'm sorry, but I have no plans to sell any equity at this time. A flicker of annoyance crossed Robert's face, but he quickly masked it. Ethan, you should learn to be more grateful. Without the platform Miller Corp provided, you never would have been able to develop such a system. Mr. Miller, over the past 3 years, the value I created for Miller Corp far exceeded my compensation, I said, my voice calm but firm. As far as I'm concerned, we're even. Robert nodded slowly. Very well. If you're not interested in a partnership, then let's move on to the second matter. Which is, Sarah, he said, his tone turning serious. She has not been well lately. I want you to reconcile with her. I almost laughed out loud. Mr. Miller, that's a strange request, considering it was your family that demanded the divorce. I know we made a mistake, Robert sighed. But Sarah is truly suffering now. She regrets her decision every day. That was her choice, I said coldly. I'm not going to make a life-altering decision out of pity. Robert's face hardened. Ethan, don't force my hand. What is that supposed to mean? My own smile vanished. It's simple, he said, rising and walking to the window. Your current success is built entirely on the Aegis system. But what do you think would happen if someone were to publicly challenge the ownership of its intellectual property? A surge of anger rose in me. Mr. Miller, are you threatening me? I'm not threatening you. I'm giving you some friendly advice, he said, turning back to me. Business is a battlefield. Once a war starts, it's very difficult to stop. I stood up as well. If there's nothing else, I should be going. Ethan, are you sure you want to make an enemy of us? Robert's voice turned icy. I'm not the one who wants to be enemies. You're the one forcing this confrontation, I said, looking him straight in the eye. If you want to fight, you'll get one. As I walked out of the Miller Corp tower, my mind was heavy. I knew the real trouble was about to begin. Robert Miller was not a spoiled amateur like Lucas Vance. He was a titan of industry, a ruthless and experienced player. If he decided to come after me, it would be an all-out war. Back in my office, I immediately called a meeting with my core team. We may be about to face the fight of our lives, I said, briefly explaining my meeting with Robert Miller. Leo frowned. What do you think they'll do? They'll throw everything at us, I said gravely. IP lawsuits, malicious litigation, media smear campaigns, poaching our employees, and they might even use their political connections. Rachel looked worried. How do we even begin to defend against that? First, we bolster our legal team. Review and double-check all our IP documentation. I began to lay out our strategy. Second, we need to finalize the deal with Aura Technologies as soon as possible. We need a more powerful ally. Anything else? Leo asked. Yes, I paused. We need to prepare for the worst-case scenario. If things get too bad here, we'll relocate the company and go international. Just then, Rachel's phone rang. She answered, and her face grew pale. Ethan, we have a problem, she said after hanging up. I just heard from our contact at Aura. Someone reported us for patent infringement. They need to reevaluate the risks of the partnership. I clenched my fists. Robert was moving even faster than I had anticipated. And it gets worse, Leo said, his own phone now in hand. Several of our major clients just received anonymous tips, claiming our system has a major security vulnerability. It was clear. Robert Miller was launching a full-scale assault. But I wasn't afraid. The success of the past 3 months had given me the resources and the confidence to fight back. All right, everyone, listen up, I said, standing tall. If they want to play dirty, we'll play right back. I picked up my phone and dialed an international number. Hello, Mr. Johnson. This is Ethan Hayes from the U.S. The man on the other end was a partner at a well-known Silicon Valley venture capital firm. We had spoken before. If the business environment here became untenable, I needed to have an escape route. Over the next few days, the attacks were relentless. First, several clients suspended their contracts, citing legal risks. Then, a few of our key programmers abruptly resigned. Finally, even the landlord of our office building tried to evict us. Ethan, this is getting bad, Rachel said, showing me the latest numbers. We've lost 15 clients this week. Our revenue is down 40%. Leo was equally dejected. And a few of our competitors are taking advantage of the situation, slashing their prices to steal our clients. We're losing market share fast. I paced the office, then stopped abruptly. Do they really think this will be enough to break us? They're so naive, I scoffed. If they want to play dirty, I'll show them what it means to get your hands dirty. I picked up my phone and made a series of calls. The first was to a contact at the IRS, reporting Miller Corp for suspected tax fraud. The second was to the SEC, reporting a series of regulatory violations by Miller Corp. The third was to the media, providing them with a file of Miller Corp's internal dirty laundry. I had gathered this information during my time with the family, but had never used it. Now that they had declared war, the gloves were off. As expected, 2 days later, Miller Corp was inundated with investigation notices. While these wouldn't be a fatal blow, they would be enough to keep Robert Miller buried in legal trouble for months. Ethan, you are digging your own grave. Robert's voice came through the phone, seething with rage. It's called returning the favor, Robert, I said coolly. You're the one who enjoys these games, aren't you? I'm just playing along. Do you really think you can win this way? He sneered. I have 100 ways to shut your company down. Then by all means try. I shot back undeterred. And I have 100 ways to make Miller Corp's life a living hell. I hung up, knowing the war had officially begun. But I was confident I would be the one left standing. Because I possessed the two most powerful weapons, superior technology and a clear vision of the future. This time, I would show everyone what real power looked like. Chapter 9. The war escalated to a fever pitch. Robert Miller's counterattack was swift. The next morning, I arrived at the office to find several law enforcement vehicles parked outside. Ethan, they're here to seize our servers, Leo said, his face pale as he ran to meet me. The warrant says we're suspected of illegally acquiring user data. I calmly reviewed the warrant. It was from the Cybersecurity Division, citing an anonymous tip that we were in violation of data privacy laws. Let them search, I said coolly. Our operations are fully compliant. We have nothing to hide. But seizing our servers meant a complete shutdown of our business. The blow would be devastating. Just then, my phone rang. Ethan, it's Mark Jensen from Aura, the familiar voice said. I hear your company has run into some trouble. Yes, a competitor is making some malicious allegations, I replied honestly. Well, at Aura, we don't back down from a fight. Mark's tone was firm. If you're willing, we can provide you with legal support. His words were a lifeline. Aura's willingness to stand by us at this critical moment proved that their belief in our technology was genuine. Mark, thank you. I can't tell you how much that means, I said sincerely. Don't mention it. We're partners, he said with a chuckle. And by the way, our legal team is already on their way. They should be there in 30 minutes. Sure enough, half an hour later, Aura's formidable legal team arrived. They presented the partnership agreement between our companies, proving that our data usage was fully authorized and legally compliant. After verifying the documentation, the law enforcement officers withdrew the seizure order. That was a close call, Rachel said, breathing a sigh of relief. But I knew this was just the beginning. Robert Miller had more tricks up his sleeve. And I was right. The following week was a relentless barrage of attacks. First, false information began circulating online, claiming our system had a backdoor that could leak user data. Although we immediately issued a refutation, the rumors caused considerable damage. Then, several of our key clients suddenly terminated their contracts, citing concerns about legal risks. I knew someone was pressuring them behind the scenes. The most egregious move was when someone forged my signature on a document and used it to spread offensive statements, nearly getting me blacklisted from the industry. Ethan, we have to fight back, Leo said angrily. We can't just keep taking these hits. I thought for a moment, then picked up my phone and dialed a familiar number. Kevin? It's Ethan. I need a favor. After hearing what had been happening, Kevin Shaw was furious. This is outrageous. These people are acting like mobsters. Kevin, you have extensive connections in the financial world. Can you help me investigate the cash flow of Miller Corp? I asked. Consider it done. I'll have my people look into it immediately, he promised without hesitation. After that call, I reached out to a few other contacts, launching a multi-pronged investigation into Miller Corp's operations. If Robert Miller wanted to play dirty, I would show him what a professional operation looked like. 3 days later, the results came in, and they were shocking. Ethan, you won't believe what we found, Kevin said excitedly over the phone. Miller Corp's financial situation is far worse than anyone knows. Tell me more, I said, my interest piqued. They have a massive portfolio of bad investments overseas, with losses exceeding $200 million. To cover it up, they've been engaging in some highly creative accounting. Some of it looks downright illegal, Kevin explained. This was the opening I had been waiting for. If Miller Corp had serious financial problems, I had a weapon to use against them. Kevin, can you give me the concrete evidence? I asked. Of course. I've already had a detailed report compiled, he said. But be careful, Ethan. These big corporations play for keeps. Once I had the report, I meticulously studied Miller Corp's financial records. It was just as Kevin had said, full of irregularities and potentially illegal maneuvers. I handed the information over to Mark Sullivan, the journalist, asking him to investigate and report on it. A week later, Tech Frontier published a bombshell story. Financial irregularities plague prominent corporation. The article provided a detailed analysis of Miller Corp's financial data, highlighting numerous red flags. The story sent shockwaves through the business community. Miller Corp's stock plummeted by 8% that day. Robert Miller's call came quickly. "Ethan, you bastard," he roared, his voice filled with fury. "How dare you spread these slanderous lies about my company?" "Lies, Robert." I feigned innocence. "The data in the article is from public records. The analysis seems perfectly objective to me." "You just wait. This isn't over," he seethed before hanging up. But I knew that this time he was the one in trouble. For a publicly traded company, accusations of financial fraud were a death sentence. The SEC would undoubtedly launch an investigation. Sure enough, the next day, the SEC announced a formal inquiry into Miller Corp. Our counterattack had landed a solid blow, but I knew the war wasn't over. An old fox like Robert Miller would have other moves. Just when I thought I could breathe a little easier, the biggest challenge yet arrived. "Ethan, we have a major problem." Rachel rushed in my office. "We've been served with a lawsuit." I took the legal documents and my heart sank. Miller Corp was suing us for theft of trade secrets, seeking $1 billion in damages. "What's their justification?" I asked, suppressing my rage. "They're claiming that you stole the company's core technology during your employment," Rachel said, her voice trembling. "Even though you have the patents, they're arguing that the technology was developed on their platform." It was a vicious move. Even with my patents, legal battles over intellectual property were notoriously complex and drawn out. Even if we eventually won, the process would drain our resources and time. More importantly, a lawsuit of this magnitude would destroy our business reputation. Many potential clients would stay away. "What do we do, Ethan?" Leo asked, equally worried. I thought for a moment, then said, "Give me the best law firm in the country. We're going to fight this to the very end." "But the legal fees will be astronomical," Rachel said. "Don't worry about the money," I said firmly. Aura has already pledged their legal support, and I believe that in the end, justice will prevail. Just then, my personal cell rang. The caller ID surprised me. It was Sarah. "Ethan, can we meet?" Her voice sounded exhausted. "I have something important to tell you." I hesitated, but ultimately agreed. Fine, the usual place. An hour later, I met Sarah at the coffee shop. She looked haggard, her eyes filled with a mixture of fatigue and pain. "Ethan, this war has to end," she said, getting straight to the point. "What do you mean?" I asked. "I don't agree with what my father is doing," she said, looking down. "I know he thinks he's avenging me, but this is hurting everyone." I scoffed. "It's a little late for that, isn't it? You've already pushed things this far." "I can help you," she said, suddenly looking up, a determined light in her eyes. "I know the truth behind this lawsuit. I can give you the evidence you need." I was stunned. "What evidence?" "My father. He had some documents forged for this lawsuit," she said in a low voice. "I have a recording." I studied her expression, tried to determine if she was telling the truth. "Why would you help me?" I asked. Sarah was silent for a long time. "Because I still love you," she finally answered. "And because I want to atone for what I did." "Sarah, if what you're saying is true, do you realize what this means?" I said gravely, "You would be betraying your own family." "I know," she said, tears streaming down her face. "But I can't stand by and watch you be framed." I was silent for a long time, weighing my options. In the end, I decided to trust her one last time. "All right, give me the evidence." Sarah pulled a small digital recorder from her purse. "This has a conversation between my father and his lawyer. They admit to fabricating technical documents to frame you." I took the recorder, a whirlwind of emotions swirling within me. This woman had once betrayed me, and now she was betraying her own family for my sake. Human nature was a complicated thing. "Thank you," I said sincerely. "Ethan, can you ever forgive me?" she asked, sobbing. I shook my head. "This isn't about forgiveness. We can never go back to what we were." Sarah closed her eyes in pain. I left the coffee shop, the recorder heavy in my hand, my mind in turmoil. But I knew one thing for certain. With this evidence, I could finally turn the tables. This war was about to end. Chapter 10, the audio recording Sarah provided, changed everything. I immediately handed it over to my lawyers and filed a countersuit against Miller Corp. Now, they were the ones on the defensive. Falsifying evidence in a malicious lawsuit was a serious felony. "This is fantastic, Ethan," Rachel exclaimed, looking at the court's notice of acceptance. The leverage is completely on our side now. Leo was equally thrilled. I never would have guessed that Sarah would be the one to save us. It's unbelievable. I nodded, but my mood was more somber. I knew Robert Miller wouldn't go down without a fight. He would have other moves planned. Sure enough, that afternoon, Robert called. "Ethan, let's talk," he said, his voice eerily calm. "What's there to talk about?" I retorted. "What do you want?" he asked bluntly. "It's simple. A public apology, a complete withdrawal of all lawsuits, and full compensation for our damages," I stated, giving no quarter. Robert was silent for a moment. "And if I refuse? Then I'll see you in court," I said firmly. "And I have a feeling the judge will be very interested in what's on my recording." "Fine. We'll see you in court," he said, then hung up. But I knew it was just a stalling tactic. The next day, a new problem arrived. "Ethan, the IRS is back," Leo said, his face grim. "This time, they're launching a full-scale audit, claiming major tax evasion." I scoffed. This was Robert's last, desperate attempt to bog us down in bureaucratic nightmares. "Let them audit," I said calmly. "Our books are clean. We have nothing to fear. But a full audit would still be a major disruption to our operations." Just then, my phone rang. It was Mark Jensen from Aura. "Ethan, I heard you're in trouble again," he said with concern. "Yes, someone is pulling strings to make our lives difficult," I replied. "I have a proposition for you, Ethan," Mark said. "If you're willing, Aura is prepared to acquire your company outright. That would solve all your problems." The offer caught me completely by surprise. An acquisition by Aura would indeed put an end to all this. "Mark, what exactly are you proposing?" "Aura is offering $5 billion to acquire a 51% controlling stake in your company," he said. "You would remain as CEO with full operational autonomy." $5 billion. The number was staggering. If I accepted, I would not only resolve my current crisis, but also become incredibly wealthy. "Mark, I need some time to think about this," I said. "Of course," he replied, "but I would advise you to decide quickly. Things could get worse before they get better." After hanging up, I was lost in thought. Logically, accepting Aura's offer was the best possible move. But emotionally, I was reluctant to sell the company I had built from nothing. "What's on your mind, Ethan?" Rachel asked, noticing my preoccupation. I shared Aura's offer with my core team. $5 billion. Leo's eyes widened. "Ethan, that's an astronomical sum. And Aura is a global leader. A partnership like that would be incredible for our future," Rachel added, leaning towards accepting the deal. But I was still hesitating. Then, a call came from a number I never expected to see again. "Mr. Hayes, this is Lucas Vance." "Lucas? What do you want?" I asked, surprised. "Ethan, I think we should be working together, not against each other." His tone was unexpectedly sincere. I was even more baffled. Given our history, a partnership was the last thing I would have imagined. "What are you talking about, Lucas?" "It's simple. We have a common enemy. Robert Miller," he said. "He's not just coming after you. He's been secretly undermining my company as well." I frowned. "What kind of partnership?" "I can provide you with more dirt on Miller Corporation, enough to bury Robert for good," Lucas offered. "In exchange, I'm hoping we can collaborate on a technical level." The proposition was shocking. If what Lucas said was true, it was a tempting offer. "I'll have to think about it, Lucas." "Of course," he said. "But don't take too long. Robert is planning something big." I hung up, my mind now even more conflicted. I had three options: accept Aura's acquisition and solve all my problems instantly, partner with Lucas Vance to take down Robert Miller, continue to fight on my own, relying on my own strength. Each path had its own risks and rewards. I needed to choose carefully. As I was weighing my options, another dramatic event unfolded. "Ethan, you have to see this." Rachel ran into my office, holding up a news alert on her tablet. Something huge just happened at Miller Corp. I took the tablet. The headline was a bombshell: Miller Corp chairman Robert Miller taken into custody for embezzlement. "How did this happen?" I asked, stunned. "The report says an internal whistleblower provided police with irrefutable evidence," Rachel said. "Miller Corp's stock has been halted." I stared at the picture of Robert Miller being led away in handcuffs, a complex mix of emotions washing over me. To think that this once invincible titan of industry would meet such an end. "Well, I guess our crisis is officially over," Leo said with a grin. "Robert Miller has bigger problems now than us." It was true. With Robert's arrest, all the attacks against us ceased. The IRS dropped its audit, and the courts suspended the lawsuits. But I knew this wasn't my doing. The force that had brought down Robert Miller had to be something far more powerful. Just then, my phone rang. It was Lucas Vance. "So, Ethan, do you believe in my sincerity now?" he said, a note of triumph in his voice. "This was you?" I asked. "Not entirely," he chuckled, "but I did provide some of the key evidence. Robert Miller has been cutting corners and breaking laws for years. It was only a matter of time before he got what he deserved." It all clicked into place. Lucas had been planning this for a long time, just waiting for the right moment to strike. Now that Robert is out of the picture, I believe our partnership is more important than ever, Lucas continued. I thought for a moment, then made my decision. "Lucas, I'm sorry, but I've decided to accept Aura's acquisition offer." There was a stunned silence on the other end. "Aura is acquiring you." "Yes, for $5 billion, I said calmly. Lucas was silent for a long time, then let out a bitter laugh. "Well, it seems I was outplayed after all. Congratulations, Ethan." I hung up the phone and let out a long, deep breath. After all the twists and turns, the path forward was finally clear. Accepting Aura's acquisition would not only resolve all my conflicts, but also give my company the platform it needed to reach its full potential. A month later, the acquisition was finalized. I remained as CEO, with full control over the company's operations, while Aura became the majority shareholder. At the celebration party, Mark Jensen raised his glass to me. "To Ethan, you've created a true startup miracle." I raised my glass in return, my heart filled with a sense of profound accomplishment. From being thrown out of the Miller Mansion with nothing to my name just months ago, to becoming a billionaire entrepreneur, the journey had been surreal. But I knew this was just a new beginning. With a powerhouse like Aura behind me, I could now pursue even greater ambitions. And as for those who had once looked down on me and betrayed me, they had all met their deserved fates. Robert Miller was sentenced to 3 years in prison for embezzlement, and Miller Corp., crippled by the scandal, was eventually broken up and sold for parts. Lucas Vance, though he avoided legal trouble, had exhausted his resources in his fight against the Millers. Vance Industries was a shadow of its former self, no longer a threat. And Sarah? After her father's arrest, she disappeared. I heard she had moved abroad. Standing by the window of my new office, looking out at the glittering city skyline, I thought of an old saying, "Fortune's wheel is ever turning." For me, it had just turned a little faster.